everyone, and welcome to National Treasure Hunt, the podcast where the secret lies not only with Charlotte, but also with your co hosts. I'm Aubrey,
And I'm Emily.
and we are back with a historical deep dive. It's been a minute since we've gone back to our roots and really, well, taken a deep dive into like a historic figure or landmark, and I'm excited to do it today.
It has been a while and I missed it.
Really?
Yeah. I always find these to be like you said, taking us back to our roots, Like it
Yeah.
was a nice little oh.
And for more than one reason this time, because our deep dive today is into the USS Kidd, which features in not National Treasure 1, not National Treasure 2, but National Treasure Edge of History, though. The reason we like the USS Kidd in Edge of History so much is because it is one of the most elegant nods to the National Treasure films that you will find in the show, in my personal opinion.
I completely agree. That was not the opinion I thought you held about it, so I'm glad to hear.
Oh, no. I very strongly feel that way. And that makes this episode even more fun because we did a whole deep dive episode on the USS Intrepid, which this is sort of an homage to in the National Treasureverse. So we'll actually talk a little bit about that later, I think.
Probably.
All right, but before we get into all that, we have to start off with our screams from Parkington Lane. All right, hit me. How has National Treasure infiltrated your life recently?
Um Not National Treasure as much as National Treasure Hunt, but as I
Ooh,
was
love that.
driving home from work on the turnpike today, I saw a large electronic billboard for the Philadelphia celebration of America 250,
And you were
which
like,
just feels national treasure for many reasons.
many reasons, including some of the things we'll get to in our like business segment today, since we may or may not have some America 250 events coming up. Um, so my scream today, it's a little dated, and I apologize. And I only point it out because I am going to be referencing some people in this one, and if they happen to hear this, I want them to know that I know it's dated. But we keep a list of screams. Um, I guess a month, maybe month and a half back, one of my favorite podcasts that I listen to every day is the Reality Steve podcast. And as many of our dedicated National Treasure hunters know, the Reality Steve podcast actually gave us the idea for National Treasure Hunt because back in the day, back in 2020, Steve Carbone interviewed Brad Gilmore about Brad's podcast on Back to the Future. And that really inspired this entire National Treasure Hunt thing that we've got going on. So I bring this up because like late last year, Back to the Future was celebrating a major anniversary, and Steve was talking about it on a show every day. And people were like sending him emails about like how Back to the Future impacted their lives. So I sent him an email telling him about how his show about Back to the Future and how Brad Gilmore's show inspired what we do today. And here's a little update on all the things we've gotten to do: the red carpet, the tours, the books, like all this stuff. He read it on his show, he seemed super honored and like excited and thrilled to have that, like, have been that motivation and inspiration. And really, he said it was really cool to see how far we've taken this. And then he sent the message to Brad Gilmore, who then emailed me also saying that not only is he honored to be a part of our story, but he apparently follows us, knows what we do, and loves what we do. So, yeah. So,
Wow.
this is a huge shout out to both Reality Steve and Brad Gilmore. We appreciate you both.
Yes, thank you. I don't know who you are, but thank you for inspiring what we do here.
Okay, so those are our screams today. Let's take a moment to look back at a past episode of National Treasure Hunt in case you're new here and are super intimidated by our back catalog, or if you just want to go back and revisit some episodes that you listened to like 5 years ago. Today, we are not actually technically looking back on our USS Intrepid episode. We're looking back at episode 15, Hunt for Lincoln, which was a historical deep dive. It was just into the Lincoln assassination.
This one was really cool because
Yeah.
I didn't really know, I think I just took the National Treasure 2 story as, fact because I didn't really know that much about the Lincoln assassination, so I really got to dive a little bit deeper into all of the people that played a role.
Yeah.
That was my favorite part.
I remember being super impressed by the high fidelity with which National Treasure 2 replicated the Lincoln assassination. And I also remember this being the first time that we really learned where the filming of those scenes, those like actual assassination scenes, took place. It is not where you guys think. And I'm not going to tell you where it was. So you have to go back and listen to episode 15 to find out.
You do. And when you listen to it, please tell us about it. You can find us on X and Instagram at NT Hunt Podcast. And please, please, please subscribe to our new National Treasure Hunt YouTube channel, where you can see our beautiful faces with every episode. Also, you can check us out at nthuntpodcast.com, where you can find info about our books, events, all that kind of stuff. And then we also have a Patreon, patreon.com/nthuntpodcast, where we host seasonal watch parties. And, if you join now, maybe you might be able to find out what movie we'll watch together next.
Speaking of events and activities, we do have some updates for you guys. The first one being very, very important. Registrations are now open for the Spring National Treasure Hunt Tour in Washington, D.C. That tour this spring is happening on Saturday, April 25th. The sign up form is available on our website or in the show notes for today's episode. You can also find, as Emily mentioned, all the details like the FAQs about what that tour entails on our website. We also have coming up very, very quickly our very first America 250 live event of this year. You can get your tickets right now to see me give a live interactive lecture at the Houston Museum of Natural Science in Houston, Texas on Wednesday, March 18th at 6:30 p.m. local time. I will also be signing copies of our books. Yes, books plural. That includes both our original book, National Treasure Hunt: One Step Short of Crazy, and my new book, Riley Poole's Book of Secrets: History for National Treasure Hunters. Tickets for that event are on sale now at hmns.org or again at the link in our show notes. Okay, that's all the business. It's all exciting business though. Whenever we get to talk about events and tour, I could not be happier.
Yeah, it's I'm really excited about all the stuff we have coming up, but I'm also excited about this episode.
Heck yes. Okay, so this historical deep dive is going to run down as they usually do with one important addition at the end. So we'll start with our show context in case you either haven't seen Edge of History or it's been a minute since you've watched. Then we're going to actually discuss the history of the USS Kidd. Then we're going to do our classic, in this case, Edge of History versus history. What did we see in Edge of History in terms of how the Kidd was portrayed? What of that was like real? What was embellished? And then our additional section today is going to be comparing the National Treasure and Edge of History portrayals of these battleships and how they were used in the context of our story, just to really hammer home that parallel between the use of the USS Intrepid and the USS Kidd.
Yes, so I feel like I know what you're going to ask me, and I'm nervous.
However, could you tell? Have we done like a bajillion deep dives before and you recognized a pattern?
Yeah, and I'm still somehow never fully prepared.
So, Emily, do you remember how the USS Kidd is relevant to you or appears in National Treasure: Edge of History?
It's a boat
Wow.
that was on the show. Um Oh wait, this is the one that Oren, I don't know if he was actually on the boat, but Jess was there and Billy, and there was a gift shop.
I am so proud of you.
Thank you.
So, I'm going to follow up with a second question because I'm just going to make your life that much harder. Do you remember when, like what episode this might happen in?
Nope.
Not even going to try?
Nope.
Beginning, middle, or end of the series? Come on.
Beginning?
Yes. I'm so glad you got there because this was at the very beginning, all right? So you all might recall that at the very end of Edge of History episode 1, Billy kidnaps Orin in an attempt to strong-arm Jess into giving her the Aztec box. Then, as episode 2 kicks off, Jess arranges to meet Billy in the gift shop of the USS Kidd Museum to exchange the box for Orin. Now, Jess's rationale here is that she used to work at this gift shop, apparently, so she knows there's like an armed guard stationed there. So she, like, this will prevent Billy from pulling a gun, for example. Um, of course, then we have, once they're at the USS Kidd, Jess kind of stupidly puts a keychain inside of the box to try to get Billy arrested for shoplifting, but all that really does is tell Billy that the box opens. But I digress.
I remember you being really mad about that.
I'm still really mad about that.
Oh, I know. It
I will
never
say,
truly goes away.
saying that just then, I did feel a little pang of guilt because of our recent amazing conversation with Lizette, who played Jess. But I'm not mad at her. I'm mad at the writing. She was just
Mhm.
doing her job, you know?
You're just mad at the Wibberleys.
Stop! You're making me feel bad again.
I love all of you if you're listening.
We all love all of you. Let's be honest. It's just that this was a sticking point that I am still stuck on. Okay. So that is our show context, you guys. I hope that rings a bell. And let's get into the history of it, because I don't know about you, Em. I had never heard of the USS Kidd before, much like the Intrepid case.
Nope. Never heard of it. Didn't know anything about it until the research.
Right. And I guess the one thing, if I had to have made a prediction from watching Edge of History, was that the ship is located in Baton Rouge, since most of the filming of the show took place there. That will end up being the case. We'll get there later, but it wasn't always. The ship was not always in Baton Rouge, the American Gulf Coast, etc.
I mean, it had to be used at some point.
Correct. So let's get to the beginning here. For those who are familiar with, the American military and have familiarity with battleships and the Navy, some of this is going to mean a lot to you, I am sure. For the rest of us, we're just giving you a history lesson, okay? So the USS Kidd was a destroyer. Right, so that's a type of battleship, and it was designed as part of the Fletcher class of ships. So Fletcher class destroyers were built beginning in World War II, and I guess they were good enough that some of them were still operating in the Korean and Vietnam Wars.
That's crazy to me.
Mhm.
I have to say that I was really interested in this Fletcher class,
Hmm.
designation. I don't
Okay.
know why. I've never cared about ships before, beyond National Treasure context, but I
Right.
was like, I'm gonna look into this. And so, let me tell y'all, the reason why these Fletcher class destroyer ships were built in the beginning of World War II is because apparently before that, there was a treaty with Britain
Mhm.
that put a limit of 1,500 tons on destroyers. So, basically, they could not weigh more than 1,500 tons. But there was a change made to this treaty, right prior to World War II, and that allowed ships to be 3,000 tons.
So literally doubling the limit.
Yeah.
Wow.
And the Fletcher class destroyers were the first ships that the Navy made to go
Mm.
above that original 1,500 ton limit, apparently, which is why they're kind of a big deal. And apparently they fixed some design flaws that some of the
Mm.
other previous ships had, like stability issues. The more you know.
The more you know. I'll be honest, before National Treasure Hunt, my exclusive knowledge of battleships is back to my hometown, or the town bordering my hometown in New Jersey, where there's literally just in the middle of this cornfield, there's the top of a battleship just planted there, and it's like a test site for Lockheed Martin. Yeah, it's crazy.
My previous experience was the game Battleship.
I love that for both of us, to be completely honest. Okay, how are we already off track? Let's keep going. So the USS Kidd was launched in 1943 out of a shipyard in New Jersey. Maybe it was the inspo for the ship top. Who knows? I can't say. I
Maybe
don't want
that's where the top is.
Oh my
It's
god.
not, y'all. It's not.
It's well,
It's
it's like
still
the
attached.
I don't know, maybe they chopped it in half and the USS Kidd is now 1,500 pounds and the top of this ship is 15. Okay, stop. I need to stop. Okay, so it was launched out of a shipyard in New Jersey. It was sponsored by the widow of Rear Admiral Isaac Kidd. I have a lot to break down here. So Isaac Kidd, for starters, was a rear admiral who served during Pearl Harbor. He died on the ship, the USS Arizona, and he was the first, basically, U.S. casualty at Pearl Harbor. Yeah. A lot of ships have since been named after him. This is one of them. Now, you might also be wondering, what does it mean for this ship to be sponsored by his widow?
Yeah, this sounds like something out of Bridgerton, I have to say.
You're not totally wrong in terms of hashtag vibes. Um, this basically means that a woman is like spiritually tied to this ship by granting the ship good luck and like safe passage and safe travels and like pops a bottle of champagne and stuff like that.
Is the implication that she kind of bequeaths her husband's spirit to the boat?
I not formally, but like, and I don't think you have to have I don't think you have to have been widowed
Oh,
kind of thing. Well,
okay.
I,
So it's just like a lady saying, "Best of luck, here's some champagne," and they pay for it?
I don't think
Or
she doesn't
donate
pay for
money?
it. No, she's just like it's like the human mascot and or um um patron saint of the ship.
There's a patron saint of the ship?
Oh my god. I'm doing my best here. It's very ceremonial, okay? It's ceremonial.
So, I could have sponsored a ship.
I'm sure they'd have to have a reason to invite you to sponsor a ship. Like it would need
Because
to
I'm
make
me?
Yes, then they could have invited you to sponsor a ship. Now, I will say the Rear Admiral Kidd's widow becomes relevant in one more piece of the story, possibly my favorite part of the story, which is that um, the ship was eventually put into military service, like actively commissioned, I guess is the technical term, about 2 months after it was launched, at which point it flew a Jolly Roger flag. You know what a Jolly Roger is, right, Em?
Isn't it Captain Hook's ship from Peter Pan?
Oh my god. It's the skull and crossbones flag that pirates are like very well known for.
I low-key thought it was just the name
I'm
for Captain
sure
Hook's
you
ship.
I'm sure you did.
I'm
Um
also staring at a flag with a skull and crossbones that's black.
well, that's very timely for today's conversation. So, the
Shout out
crew,
Josh.
the reason this happened is because the crew of the ship decided to make the pirate William Kidd like their unofficial mascot. And that is why they started flying this flag. They also had a pirate, like a depiction of William Kidd, painted onto the ship's smokestack. Now, that being said, you could imagine the military being a little stuffy, at least in terms of like not traditionally allowing something like this. And so, Rear Admiral Kidd's widow actually helped the crew get the Navy's permission to do all of these like pirate themed modifications. And I love that.
Why? I just want to know, why this ship with the pirate?
Because it's named the USS Kidd, and the pirate's name was William Kidd.
But it just, it feels like the vibes went from hoity-toity patron saint
Oh my god.
to, like, jolly good time, sir,
Oh,
and
there's going to be more of that. They're making the most of what I assume is not the most ideal situation, which is like being at war, you know?
that's fair. Yeah.
So the USS Kidd ends up being the only US Navy ship to ever fly the Jolly Roger, which again, I personally adore. I do wish we saw that in Edge of History, by the way, like even just in a B-roll, just like, you know what I mean? Seeing the
Do
flag
you
on
think
the
it still
ship.
has the flag attached?
It does. Yes. Okay.
That's cool.
So, low key, everyone and their mother thinks that the ship is named after the pirate, but it is technically named after the Rear Admiral. Like I mentioned before, two other battleships also bear the Rear Admiral's name. And I will say we almost had a, was it the Mummy situation here, where I was almost looking up the wrong ship.
Aubrey.
Did you not have this issue?
I didn't. Um, because I used Edge of History, like, in my search criteria.
Oh, really?
So I feel
Okay.
like it helped me.
I'm sure I did not do that. Um, okay, so moving along. Now that we got the niceties and the fun out of the way, the USS Kidd ended up moving into the active theater in the late summer. But before that, it escorted combat vessels around the Atlantic Ocean and the Caribbean Sea. In September of 1943, it arrived at Pearl Harbor, where it escorted aircraft carriers for attacks on Japanese bases in Micronesia. Then we have that fall into the following summer, so a pretty good stretch of time. The USS Kidd participated in maneuvers around Papua New Guinea, the Solomon Islands, Kiribati, Tuvalu, the Marshall Islands, New Guinea, and Guam. Yeah, a lot, right?
Yeah, Kid's doing a lot of work here.
I know, and presumably also the people on board, including at one point, the ship and its crew rescued a different crew from an aircraft whose home base was like technically the USS Essex. I didn't really understand how this happened, but for whatever reason, this crew needed rescuing, and the USS Kids stepped it or floated in, I guess.
She came to the rescue.
Yes, indeed. Okay. Later, let's keep going. In early 1945, the Kid was part of the invasion of Okinawa, where some of its really many responsibilities included shooting down Japanese kamikaze planes.
I mean, it fits that it still has a lot of responsibilities. Or I'm sorry, she has a lot of responsibilities.
We're really dedicated to this, like putting a gender on the ship, even though I know ships are typically considered
Ships are
women.
she's.
Why?
I don't know, but it feels weird to me to say it given that the ship also carries the soul of this man.
Sorry. It's
To
so
be
good.
clear, that doesn't happen.
I'm so
That's not
glad
actually a thing. That's my headcanon.
I'm so glad I wasn't drinking my tea because that would have been a major spit take. I'm not gonna lie.
I cannot emphasize enough that that is not true. Okay? I'm not spreading a false narrative. I am making a joke.
Thank you for clarifying. It worked. I laughed. Okay. Um so yeah, I see. For those who are not watching on YouTube, Emily is hugging her emotional support duck right now. I think she's
I
concerned that
am.
y'all are gonna at her for like disrespecting this ship.
Well, ducks, water, ships,
Mm.
water villain.
Ducks, comma,
Ah!
ducks, comma, do you like? Question mark.
Jeez.
Okay. Focus. So the the USS Kidd was decommissioned in December of 1946. However, decommissioning doesn't apparently mean it has to be the end of the road. I did not know this. This was a learning time for me. Because it was later recommissioned in March of 1951 for the Korean War. The crew sailed the Kidd throughout like Asia Pacific and Oceania during the Cold War, and then it was decommissioned again almost 20 years later in 1964 and kept at the Philadelphia shipyard.
Okay, that's cool. The decommissioning and recommissioning of ships feels like one of those things to me that it's like, once again, this formalization of a process that I'm sure has significance to the people involved,
Uh-huh.
but it doesn't feel real because I feel like almost, not almost always, but I feel like in many of the ships we have learned about, the ship has been decommissioned and then recommissioned.
I think it's mostly like, we don't feel the need to upkeep this for a while, so let's let it go sit, and then, "Actually, we need this again, let's get it back into tip-top shape and send it back out." I could be wrong. Guys, don't at me either, okay? We're trying here. But I'm surprised he didn't latch onto the Philadelphia shipyard thing. I know this is just a coincidence, but that makes this the use of the USS Kidd in Edge of History even more poetic because not only do we have the Intrepid parallel, but we also have a Philadelphia and frankly from earlier New Jersey connection that I'm sure the Edge of History team didn't even know about.
That's true. I know. I think it was cool that was in Philadelphia. It didn't stay there, which means that it had to
Right.
move again.
So, this is why it moves, right? Because apparently, y'all remember when we learned about how the HMS Resolute was like retrofitted, sent back to Great Britain. Britain used it for like a year and then decided to decommission it and like take it apart.
Yeah, that decommissioning was a little
With
more
permanent.
permanent.
Um, Apparently that's not just a Great Britain thing, you guys, because when the US no longer needs ships and doesn't have places to put them, it can also like physically get rid of them. So, the USS Kidd, all kind of by a stroke of luck, ends up being one of 3 Fletcher class ships kind of set aside for preservation purposes. And one of the reasons the USS Kidd specifically was selected was because congressperson from Louisiana set their sights on this ship to be a memorial for Louisiana's World War II veterans. Which
Makes sense.
cool pet project. I like that
Yeah.
legacy. I think that's a good move. As a result, the ship was brought down to Louisiana in 1982. It was this is also another like an HMS Resolute situation here because the kid was then restored to its appearance and armament from August 1945, like the World War II time, because it's a World War II memorial, and it is now a museum. It was designated as a National Historic Landmark in 1986.
Wow. That's pretty cool. I mean, I will say that the word armament really kind of sent me down a bit of a research rabbit hole.
Okay.
Um, I say that and I Googled it and got the answer pretty quickly. But apparently, armament means like the weapons go back on the ship.
Mhm.
Um, like it now bears arms again. Um, they're not
Right.
like actively
Right.
used,
Thank you for clarifying that.
but like they're there again. So I guess at some point that means that like maybe when the ship was decommissioned, they took the weapons off.
Yes, I think that is kind of part of it, and part of the retrofitting as well was, like, tracking down these various, like, weapons
Hmm.
from this specific time period, and my understanding from my research was it took a long time to be able to track down all the pieces, and they also sourced them from a variety of places, and so it was kind of a continuous process to retrofit the ship. Um, I will say, as of the time of this recording, so if y'all are listening to this in, like, 2030, not totally temporally accurate, but as of this recording, for the last year and a half, the USS Kidd has been dry docked for maintenance and repairs, and it is scheduled to return to the water, where we see portrayed sort of in Edge of History, in the spring of 2026. I will say, because we love a pop culture reference here, that the kid has appeared in numerous movies, documentaries, and TV shows, such as the 2012 movie Battleship. Does that ring a bell?
Nope.
This is a pretty I don't think I saw it 'cause it's not my type of movie, but I remember if you saw the movie poster, I'm pretty sure you would recognize it. Apparently, in this movie, the kid was used as, like, a stand-in for the USS Missouri.
Hmm.
And then another thing that people might have seen the ship featured in is an episode of NCIS New Orleans, which is, pretty big show, where the kid doubled as the USS Geronimo.
Okay. So what I'm hearing is Edge of History used it for its real
itself.
purpose.
Yeah. I mean, does that mean Edge of History is a documentary?
Famously.
We joke, you guys. We kid. We USS Kidd. Haha. Oh my
I
God, I'm
mean,
so
Crossus
funny.
Nostrum.
Oh,
Who
Jesus.
knows?
Okay. Okay. Let's get
This
back
is
on the
going off
rails.
the rails, yo, or out of the water.
But okay. Let's move on. That was your history lesson, you guys. But we know one of the things you want to get from this episode is Edge of History's portrayal of the USS Kidd and what it got right and wrong. So this is Edge of History versus history. We are going to go through, a couple of assumptions you might make or things you might see in Edge of History, and you might wonder if they're real representations. And we are going to kind of do some fact checking. So, do you want to pitch me a topic?
Yes. The USS Kidd is located on a river, okay, next to a bridge.
This is true.
Hmm.
So the USS Kidd and its museum are located on the Mississippi River. So we're not talking like we're not on the ocean coast right now, you guys. We are on the Mississippi River. And in the Edge of History scene, which I guess Emily you rewatch and just don't remember what episode you rewatch because the bridge is a niche observation if I do say so myself. You do see a bridge in the background. Um this is the Horace Wilkinson Bridge. It's the I-10 bridge. So, yeah.
Okay. What about this one? Because this one trips me up a little bit.
Okay.
The ship and the museum for the USS
Mhm.
Kidd are distinct. So, like, the museum is not actually, like, on the ship.
Mhm. This is pretty true.
Oh.
Yeah. I also made the assumption watching Edge of History. Recall, this is episodes 1 and 2 we're talking about, which Emily and I have famously watched 8 bajillion times. Uh,
Yeah.
so in my mind, from those 8 bajillion watches, I had definitely conceptualized when they go into the gift shop that they are going onto the ship.
100%.
But when you think about it, do you ever actually see the ship in these shots?
You do not.
You do not. So the museum, the formal museum, is on the shoreline. However, the museum plus the ship, kind of as a unit, make up the formal USS Kidd Veterans Museum. So, like, the ship is also a museum. It's just not like the. Let's put it this way. As the ship has been dry docked for the last couple of years, people can still visit the museum that is not on the ship. Do you know what I mean?
Gotcha. Okay.
And I do have a fun fact. I thought this was really interesting. When the ship is on in its location, its docked location on the Mississippi River, it's basically sitting on stilts for half of the year. Like you can see the whole thing because the tide in the river gets like higher and lower and there's a point in the year where it's super super low tide and so the boat is just kind of sitting on stilts so it's not like sinking into the mud like the Intrepid is in New York.
We should measure
Oh Jesus.
when it is on this, like, when we can see the bottom of it, how tall it is from the bottom to the deck, so that
Mhm.
we can calculate if a jump like that would kill a man.
Mhm. I suspect that's information we could find online.
It was not easy to find it for the USS
I
Intrepid,
know, but
Aubrey.
there were so many specs on the on the kids' website that I ignored because I was like, numbers, I'm not in the mood for this. So it's possible. We'll follow up, you guys.
Okay. What about, so, like, we know there's a gift shop.
Mhm.
No, we don't.
We're assuming there's a gift shop. Is that where we're going with this?
Well, I'm picturing the gift shop, so, like, yes. Right, I'm asking you, do we know if there's a gift shop? Does it have a museum gift shop? 1.
Mhm.
Is there a military security guard, which feels, like, aggressive for a decommissioned ship? And then, I guess if we're, like, going all the way for it, does the gift shop sell keychain bottle openers?
Because, of course, for those of you who don't remember, the object that Jess does put inside of the Aztec box is a keychain bottle opener. Remember, she was like accosted by that gift shop clerk, and he's like, "We have a sale on these. They open bottles, like blah blah blah." And
Mhm.
she's like, "Oh, that would be perfect," and she takes it. Um, yes to the gift shop. I'm gonna say probably not to the military security guard. Couldn't find anything about that. And actually, no to the keychain bottle openers. Um, I will say, because this is National Treasure Hunt and this is what you come here for, I did do a deep dive into the store, and they have bottle openers and they have keychains. And to be fair, I do think I found the keychain that they used in the movie. It's just not a bottle opener. They just lied about that. In case you want to purchase that keychain as like a little Edge of History artifact or National Treasure Hunt Easter egg, I guess we could try, if I remember, to share the link to this product on our social media, but it is $7.
Do they take Visa?
We take Visa.
We don't
Yes.
actually know that. I assume they probably
I'm
do, but we don't know
assuming.
that.
No, we did not dive that deeply, you guys. You guys can use the Google machine.
Yes. Okay, was the USS Kidd associated in some way with a, like, nuclear attack submarine? So, like, this one's a bit of a flex for me in noticing this because there's a banner on the wall of the gift shop leading to the restrooms that suggests this?
You are correct in that this banner exists, and based on everything that we shared in the historical deep dive, we really haven't answered this yet. So I will say yes. The ship did have anti-submarine duties or ASD during World War II, especially when it was operating the Pacific Theater. It was armed with sonar to detect the you know submarines, and it was also had charges on board to engage enemy submarines. I will say though, the reason I kind of sounded hesitant, these duties existed, but I wouldn't say that this anti-submarine warfare was its principal role. It was just like
Mm.
one of those other responsibilities, if you will.
So she could, but, you know,
But she might,
mm,
you know,
she might if
she
she's
might.
feeling it that day.
Yeah, depends on the day.
Okay. Okay, cool. I mean, you've already mentioned, like, the gift shop clerk a
Mhm,
little
mhm.
bit. You remember, like, how nosy, right?
Yeah, I mean, he was very annoying. I would have given anything to have played that role personally.
Oh, okay. Well, the gift shop clerk told Jess that he would give her 10% off if she knew when the USS Kidd was launched. And so we know from Edge of History, supposedly, that
Mhm.
it was launched February 28th, 1943. Is this true?
It is true. I will say this does feel like one of those moments we've complained about in Edge of History where it's just spitting out historical facts that aren't super relevant, but just like to prove that it can. So I frankly would have been really mad if they got this one wrong. I'm glad that they didn't.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
Okay, so again, annoying gift shop clerk.
Hmm.
Um, bugs Billy, as she is speaking with Jess,
Hmm.
and mentions that the USS Kidd was called the, quote, "Pirate of the Pacific" during World War II. I feel like I know the answer to this based on the deep dive.
Yeah, right? It is true. Um, so this nickname was a thing. The um, crews of the Kid were known as the Pirates of the Pacific. It was during World War II, but it was also the Korean and Cold Wars. I will say that part of the gift shop clerk's spiel, this is really hard to catch. You had to be looking or listening for it, but he's like, talking about a ransom of ice cream. Ha 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 ha. Like it's very cringy on purpose. Like so that Jess and Billy then are looking at him like, what are you doing? Like we're doing something important here. I will say that that continuing spiel, if you do go and listen to it, was also true. This is another one of those Aztec potato tomato moments.
Mm.
Basically During training exercises, the Kidd's crew would quote unquote ransom rescued pilots for ice cream from the aircraft carriers that they came from. Apparently, the Kidd also had on board its own ice cream machine, which was pretty uncommon for ships of this particular size. So you were mentioning before, like, why the levity? Well, there's more levity here, and I'm personally here for it.
Yeah, I mean, gotta do what you gotta do. Also, just like a side note before we move on from here, the fact that I feel like colloquially the ship is referred to maybe as the Kid could be very confusing. Um, because there were a couple times there when you said kid and I had to do a double take because I was like, why were children ransoming rescue pilots for ice cream?
A fair question. I mean, to be honest, you know?
They were not. To be abundantly clear, they were not.
Why are you having to say "to be abundantly clear" so many times in this episode?
Because I feel like I'm still coming off of our Abigail episode where we literally like made up our own lore and I was like on my little jokey thing. And
Mhm.
now I'm trying to do the same thing, except this is a historical deep dive.
So it's not
So it's not a
possible.
great place to be like
Right.
making things up. So I feel like I need to tell the people that it's not true and that I am just making a joke because also everybody knows that jokes are funnier after you explain them.
Explain them. Mhm. Famously, we're crushing it today on National Treasure Hunt. And in order to wrap up the National Treasure Hunt experience today, we are going to add in this new little segment here and comparing how the National Treasure movie and Edge of History are using their respective battleships, because we do a lot of talking about like character parallels and clue parallels, but we haven't done a ton on location parallels, at least not dedicated conversations to it. So now I think is the perfect time. Would you agree?
I mean, yeah, ships.
Okay. So from the get, for those who actually, Emily, I'm gonna ask you. For those who might not remember, where does the USS Intrepid show up in the National Treasure movies?
They asked Ben to meet them, they being Ian's team. Asked Ben to meet them on it.
Mhm, mhm,
And that's when like the FBI is like surveilling Ben,
mhm,
and then the little like helicopter flies overhead.
mhm,
Not little, it's
mhm.
an actual helicopter. Um, and then Ben jumps off of it. I knew that because I referenced it earlier, Aubrey.
I'm just making sure that our audience knows. Jeez, don't at me, bro. Um, so both the first National Treasure movie and Edge of History are using the battleship in question as the venue of a high stakes meeting between hero and villain, right? In National Treasure, though, this is where we get a subtle difference. In National Treasure, the movie, the Intrepid is functionally Ian's turf, right? Ian picks the meeting place, and Ben doesn't know what he's walking into. In fact, he thinks he's going to walk in and meet Ian, and then he finds out that, like, he's being approached by Shaw, right? It's just not what he expects. So the battleship is the villain's turf in National Treasure, whereas in Edge of History, I think this is really interesting, it's Jess's turf. Do you remember that Billy initially suggested a different meeting place and just said, let's do this place?
Unsurprisingly, no. But I do think that it was a weird choice. Because I feel like a public location with more people might have been better.
Okay, but it is a public location. It's a public museum gift shop. Like,
But there was like not really other people there.
there's guaranteed at least to be, I guess, the
Two.
clerk and the security guard, right?
Those are the only people I remember in that store.
Well, I think it is an important distinction that we have these hero villain meetings at these locations, and we have a the tide has turned in terms of who is in power in theory on these ships. So, I will say, did you clock this? A major difference that I think structurally contributes to how the ships are used is the fact that in National Treasure, the meeting on the Intrepid happens near the end of the film, but for Edge of History, it's happening at the beginning of the series.
Would you say it's near the end of the film?
Yes, it's literally right before Trinity Church.
I know, but the rest of it is very long. I feel like that's middle of the film.
It's really not. The Declaration of Independence is stolen at the middle of the film.
The pacing.
I think this is significant, though, because you get different types of high tension moments. So you have in National Treasure, the movie, Ben is needing to escape the FBI and he's needing to collaborate with the villains in his moment on the Intrepid.
Mhm.
Whereas in Edge of History, this meeting between Billy and Jess is their first interaction. So they're both tense moments, but for very different reasons.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess Jess does kind of like work with Billy. But that's not necessarily like the intention
No,
of their meeting. So
right.
I think that adds another layer to it as well.
And we'll get a much more intentional collaboration between Jess and Billy later that has nothing to do with this.
That's true.
Um, I think partially because of the structural difference between beginning of series, end of movie, is that you see differences in, gosh, I feel like this is going to be me being mean again to Edge of History, but you see a difference in kind of the importance of the ship as it pertains to the plot of the respective piece of media. Okay. So if you couldn't guess, I believe that the battleship in National Treasure is a much more active piece of the plot than in Edge of History. And that's because Ben will need to like engage the ship, i.e., jump off of the deck in order to accomplish his goal. Whereas Edge of History, much like its use of historical tidbits in lines and dialogue, it is using the kid as a backdrop, right? This does make the use of the kid feel very intentional as an homage to the Intrepid
Mhm.
because, like, in other words, the Billy Jess meeting could have happened literally anywhere with a gift shop, you know?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I hear what you're saying. I don't know. It doesn't bother me.
No, it doesn't bother
Um
me.
because I do really I think it's and you kind of alluded to this earlier. I think it's a really nice parallel,
Mhm.
right? Where it's like I guess it kind of is in your face, but it's also not. Like if you're not thinking about the
Yeah.
USS Intrepid, you're not going to be like, "Oh, that's why they're on this ship." Instead, you might just be like, "Why are they on a ship?"
Mhm. 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 For sure. For sure, I agree. I guess my point being it would have been that much cooler if there was just, like, one element of the kid that was, like, important that it was the kid. Do you know what I mean? Whether it was,
Mhm.
like, a piece of the kid's history or I don't wanna say just jumped off, that would have been really annoying to me, actually, if she had jumped off the ship's deck. I would've been like, "That's too much. No, too close. Too obvious." But anyway. What?
It was too subtle for you, but the opposite would have been too intentional.
Right.
It's a fine balance.
I'm looking for a middle ground. Um, this usage of the battleship, I think, also it illuminates, I think, pretty big differences in our villains. Okay. So, like we said, Ben walks onto the Intrepid. He thinks he's meeting Ian based on that phone call, and he ends up running into Shaw. Ian is nowhere near the Intrepid on the day of the encounter and has the henchmen do the interactions instead. On the other hand, Billy is front and center on the ship with Jess. And frankly, when you think about it, Billy is almost always front and center in her
Mm.
engagements with Jess. And this did make me think back because at the time of this recording, we have recently had our conversation with Lizette, as mentioned. And in that conversation, I was like real time formulating a thought about Billy being like a really worthy adversary in terms of her history knowledge. But this makes me think, now that I analyze this scene, that Billy is like also does not shy away from dangerous encounters in the same way that our movie villains do a little bit. Like they really rely on their hench people.
That is true. Yeah. No, I definitely see what you mean about, like, putting themselves in the dangerous situation. I
Yeah.
do have to wonder if Billy would have acted similarly to Ian in this
Mhm.
situation if she was, like, actively potentially going to be captured by the FBI if she went to the USS Kidd. You know, like, when Ian sends Shaw in disguise, right? It's because, like, Ian doesn't wanna be there because the FBI is there, and he doesn't wanna either
Yeah.
walk into a trap or get himself caught, right? Like, Billy was just being sketchy at this point in the show, like, the FBI wasn't.
You know, yes-ish. I'll push back just a little bit in that, remember in this scene where Ben gets the call from Ian at the in the FBI like lair or whatever? Um There's that moment where we hear in the background the FBI agent saying, like, "Ian Howe is a false name. We can't find this guy. We don't know who he is." So they don't know what they're looking for necessarily. And then in Billy's case, she's very thorough, so I would assume she knows that there is, at least in this fictionalized version of the USS Kidd, an armed military guard on the ship. It's not the FBI, but there is someone who could apprehend her if something goes wrong.
Sure, but that's if something goes wrong. For Ian, like, the FBI already knows Ian is,
Right.
you know, like, doing bad things. So, like, I totally get I still think there is a difference in, like, the danger levels that they are
Right.
willing to engage in. But I do think that I would be interested to see, like, what Billy's strategy would be
Mm.
if, like, she was potentially knowingly walking into a place where, like, she could be captured because the FBI knew what she did.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. I have one more point on the comparison front that I'd like to raise, and it's just one other difference. I alluded to this before, but just how much history of the ship we get, right,
Mhm.
in these media pieces. And I think one of the downsides to the ship being actively engaged in the plot in National Treasure is that we don't get to see any of the ship's history. The best we get is if you're
Yeah.
paying attention as Ben is walking around and you see the planes on the deck. Right? You see that there are planes on the deck. You know what I mean? Whereas
Right.
in Edge of History, because it is just a backdrop, we get that Sadusky tomato moment with the clerk delivering these random facts to Jess and Billy. And while I do like learning about the ship, I just wish if we were getting those random facts, they were better integrated into the plot, because as
Mm.
a result, the clerk, again, it's intentionally supposed to be funny, but it almost comes across as clunky and awkward as opposed to funny, you know?
Oh, yeah, I definitely remember feeling very,
Uncomfy.
like, uncomfy, yeah, with it. I agree with you, like, I really did like that we got information, right? Because,
Mhm.
like, I wouldn't know that much about the USS Intrepid unless, like, if we didn't do this
You
podcast.
mean the kid? Or
No, I mean the USS
oh,
Intrepid,
sure.
because I
We don't
you don't learn anything about it in the film, so, like,
right.
we did the research. USS Kidd, I'm not saying I remembered what I learned, but, like, it was there for me to
Right.
learn if I
Right.
chose to do so. But, yeah, it was really uncomfy.
I mean, this clunkiness and awkwardness could also just come from the fact that here on National Treasure Hunt, we are, like, both subconsciously and very overtly comparing the show to the movie, and, like, more generally, the fact that National Treasure, the movie, just does not deliver irrelevant historical information, so this stands out like a sore thumb to us. It might not to everyone.
Yeah, it would've been weird if they talked about the USS Intrepid in National Treasure, I think.
True that. Okay. I think that's it. Is that it?
I think we made it
I am so proud of
somehow.
us because this was an adventure, to say the very least. As we wrap up here today, I once again really enjoyed this exercise, just like I remember enjoying the Intrepid exercise. I Speaking of our like look backs at the beginning of the episode about the Intrepid deep dive, I remember walking away from that and being like, I had no idea that was going to be so interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, no, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
I'm a little obsessed with the pirate thing.
Me too. Oh my gosh, I agree. So, my call to action for all of our listeners today, if you'd like to do some more National Treasure Hunt thinking in your day to day, I want to know what US battleship, either that you're already aware of or that you do some Googling and you find something about, what US battleship do you think has an interesting backstory and could therefore show up in National Treasure 3, whether because of that backstory or where in the country it's located, etc.?
Yes, and when you do that, please let us know. You can find us on
Hmm.
social media, X and Instagram at NTHunt Podcast, our website, nthuntpodcast.com. Please leave us a rating and review before you exit out of your podcasting platform, or if you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe. And even if you're not watching us on YouTube, go over and subscribe, please.
On all of these platforms, of course, you will come back in just a couple of weeks for our next episode of National Treasure Hunt, which will dive into the psychology of the National Treasure movie characters. Emily's excited about that because she's interested in that kind of thing. So am I, but she actually has some expertise. And she doesn't know this yet, but that's going to be her episode to lead.
I
So
100% knew that.
until then, you guys, I'm Aubrey.
And I'm Emily.
And thank you so much for joining us on our National Treasure Hunt.